Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel where today I'm having a little look at the Empress Effects Zoia again, the patchable modular synth in the little box where the only limitation is your imagination and the CPU, of course. In fact, I just had my old mug got a crack, so I made a new one, so I got my channel logo and it says, as you can see, the only limitation is your imagination and the CPU, of course. Right, so how did this patch start? Now, a few days ago, I did a little improvisation on my phenol synth, and just for fun, I thought, what would happen if I patched my Lafayette mono reel-to-reel recorder with a valve amplifier as a plug-out effect from my mixer. And I thought it was quite an interesting sound. I mean, the valve amp adds a bit of sort of grit and grime, and it adds a bit of crackle and also noise as well. And this patch started when I wanted to replicate a similar effect on the Zoia, and I did find some nice ways of actually doing that with noise and crackles and things. But the thing is that I wanted to replicate some of the distortion more than anything else. And also because I've only got one effects unit, and that is the Zoia, I want to use it for everything all at the same time. So I wanted to have noise, overdrive, distortion, really, and I wanted to have reverb and I wanted to have delay, all in the same patch. And so I kept working on it, and I realized that some of the things that I added to create noise were only audible when the sound levels were so low it didn't really matter. And so I removed many of those things, and I ended up with a patch that actually I think is more useful and more interesting. So I've called this patch Multifex Maximus, and I didn't have enough letters for that on the Zoia. Actually, there should have been an E there as well. And the reason I called it that is because technically now it can do about 7 different things all in one patch. And I'll just go through them one by one now. Just to talk a bit about my signal chain before the Zoia. I've got my Sony PCM D100 microphone, and it's connected to my mixer, and that's where you hear my voice now. I'm also recording that directly. In my mixer, I've also plugged in my computer, and I'm just running over and over again on repeat now a melody that I tried out when I did my test patch a few days ago. I'll just play you those. Okay, so I got my microphone. So let's see now if... Okay, so microphone is on mute now. Okay, so now I'm playing my microphone through my mixer. And I am playing the music through the mixer. And I can also play it through the Zoia when I put it in bypass mode. I'll just mute the music there. So I got the mixer off on the side here. You can't see it, it's right there. Right, and I've also connected my MIDI fighter twister because this patch requires a bit of manual control. I've also created on this patch, this is the same layout now as the MIDI fighter twister. So each control value here corresponds to the knob. So this is where you can control it manually from the Zoia if you want. I'll just run through the different things in this patch. I'll just put my headphones on. Okay, so first of all, I'll just mute my microphone on my mixer. So I'm recording my voice now, but I can't hear it through my headphones, and I can't hear it through the Zoia, but the music is possible to hear through the Zoia. So first of all, here I got the mix knob for the clean signal coming in here. little bit of noise there. I'm not sure if that's some kind of loop, ground loop going on. And then I got a second mix. That sounds a bit lower right now, and that is because this is connected to the overdrive. So I need it to be a bit lower so I can drive it harder. This patch can be a cab simulator. I'll just put that up now. So that's a cab sim, really, what is running through now. Not a very sort of pronounced effect, but it's a bit different from the clean signal. I'll just compare now. So it's a cab sim and the clean signal. And also can mute the channels here just by pushing the buttons. Very useful. I've also created buttons for that on my Zoia as well. So it's a cab sim, and secondly, it's also an overdrive. I'll just So as you can see, these two knobs here are the overdrive input gain and the amplification. So this is where you get the grit. So these work exactly the way that your knobs would do on an overdrive pedal. So you got the input gain and the output gain, really. And usually you get the most interesting, grittiest effect by cranking up the input gain and keeping the output gain a little bit lower. So you can get all kinds of grit in between. So cab sim and overdrive. It's also and distortion, I suppose. I'll just reduce that now. It's also a delay. I'll just increase the delay time, feedback, delay mix. And both the overdriven signal potentially and the clean signal is run into the delay, but they're also driven into a second delay in parallel. I'll just do both delays now. So that gets a little bit crazier, of course, with a double delay. And then there's also a reverb as well. So dry. So reverb mix and reverb decay time here. And I'm using a reverb light because there wouldn't be enough overhead really for anything else at the moment. Another thing I've added as well is the ability for the delays to feed into each other. And in order to make that interesting, I've done it so that the output signal from each delay is sent into a mono channel, and I would have wanted a stereo channel, but mono was all I could do with the CPU at the moment. And they get delayed, so they are actually, the output signal is put into a delay line and then put back into the other delay. And you can set the amount or the levels of that here. And also there is a control of the delay line here. Let's see, I'll just put that. Okay, so now there, that's off. I'll just reduce the reverb so you can hear the effect better. In addition to that, I've also added random controls for the delay time of the delay going into the other delay. I'll show you what that sounds like. So there's one for each of there's one for each of the delays going into the other. Right, so that is how it works, and it's easy to get carried away because you can create so many crazy sounds by doing that. Right, I'll just reduce the levels here now for everything and the values. Right, so what is going on in this patch? I'll just start you through. Okay, so on the first page here, as I said, I've got the control. So these are the value modules that these are connected to. Of course, they go via MIDI input modules here. And I've also got 3 extra modules here that are the push buttons for these 3. For muting the signal that goes through the delay, the signal that goes through the distortion, muting the clean signal, and muting the cross mod of sending the signal from one delay to the other and vice versa. So those have mute buttons, and the way they are working is by being patched into multiplier modules. So the input from the MIDI controller, when I push that button, it sends a value of 1, and then that's multiplied by -1, which comes from a value module down here that has a -1 value. So that value module has been set to be outputting -1 to 1, and then it's sending -1. So we got 1 times -1, which means that that multiplier will output a value of -1 when these buttons, these 3 buttons are pushed, and that -1 value is sent to the VCAs that control the levels of the sound that comes from the distortion, the sound that comes from the inputs, and the sound that is sent from the delays to the other delay. I've also created in parallel these 3 buttons down here that do exactly the same thing as these 3. So they're connected to the same multiplier input as the MIDI control knobs. So that's one way to control the same thing from 2 different places. Right, so let's go through the signal chain on the panel here. This is the main page. So we're starting with the audio input. I'll just put on my microphone now so you can actually see something happening here. So we got the audio input here, left and right, and that is sent to 2 places. It is sent to a VCA, a stereo VCA here. So that is controlled by the level control now. That is here. So this is the level for the clean signal. That's sent to that VCA, and the output of that VCA is then sent to the effects. But also the input is sent, both left and right channel is sent to a mono input on an overdrive and distortion module. And the distortion module has 2 controls: input gain, which is controlled from this knob, and output gain, which is controlled from this knob. And that's what creates the overdrive, the grit, the dirt, the distortion sound. And to me, it sounds rather valvey as well, even though there's no... I was trying to find out different ways of creating extra noise by sending the overdrive signal into a bit crusher, for instance. When a bit crusher gets a bit crush value of just over 20, it starts creating these sort of crackly noises that still sound quite organic and analog. And I was trying to work with those, but I found out in the end I didn't really need them, because the distorted signal, when there's music or sound coming in, is masking the extra noise I added on. So it really only sounded when it was quiet, and I thought it wasn't really needed so much. I was trying to replicate the effect of my reel-to-reel recorder, which does have that sort of crackle and noise even when it's quiet, but I thought in the end I'll just make a more useful patch that doesn't try to replicate my reel-to-reel recorder necessarily. So the overdrive is then sent into a cab sim, a cab simulator, and that is using the type 1/8 lo-fi, which to me sounds the nicest, sounds the most Valve-like to me. And that output is sent to a VCA, which controls this, is controlled by this knob here. So that's the levels for the signal that's run through the overdrive. So clean signal here, overdrive signal here, overdrive controls here. And it's exactly the same layout on the control page. And I've also named these actually. I've also named these unusually. Oops. I'll keep patching things up accidentally now. Okay, so if you go into the, so I call this one gain. This one is called drive, mix, distortion mix, clean mix, delay one time, delay one feedback, etc. So I've actually named all these modules. I usually don't do that, but I thought I'd do that for a change. Okay, so after the, so that's all the VCAs for the clean and the dirty signal, I can call it, I suppose. And then the output from this VCA and the output from this VCA are all sent to both delays. So the delays are run in parallel. One is a ping pong delay, another one is a delay with mod. So they're slightly different, but not hugely. And that means that the clean signal now also preserves any stereo effects from before, whereas the distorted signal is turned into mono before it is run into the delays. Of course, after the delays, it will be a stereo signal. So the delays, you can see the effect of the knobs here actually. So we've got the delay time. We've got the, let's see, there we are. Got the feedback on the delays. And then we've got the mix back here as well. So this is the ping pong delay mix, and we got a delay with mod mix here. So how much of the signal from the delay is mixed into the signal that is sent on. So if these are off, then the signal is just passed through the delays without the sound being affected, theoretically anyway. Sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of change going on in the audio signal chain inside the Zoia, but it's minor, and it actually, I think it colors the sound in a way that I quite like anyway. And then for the delays, we have an extra feature, and that is the, let's see, I'll just remove those. So we see if I turn up this knob here, we got these two VCAs. So there's two VCAs here, and the output from each of the delays is left and right is put into a mono VCA, each their own mono VCA here. And the volumes of both of those is controlled with this one knob here. And that is the signal that is then intended to be sent back into the opposite delay. So, so that's the VCA there, and the gain is controlled by this knob, and the output is sent into this delay line. And the idea is that it will change the, let's see, this is meant to be, oh. Oh, it's always moving a little bit, it looks like. Yeah. I couldn't remember exactly how I did this now. So what I do with the delay lines, so basically the point is I don't want to have the delay or the signal from one delay to the next not being changed a little bit, because if you keep it exactly the way it is, it's easier to get a feedback loop that can get noisy. So I wanted to change the signal a bit. So I added a delay to the out, so the audio coming in here from the VCA. So this is from delay number one into VCA into a delay that changes the timing of the signal before it is fed into the left and right input of the other delay. And this is controlled by this knob, and secondarily it is also controlled by two LFOs down here. And the LFO speed is controlled by these knobs down here. As you can see, I'm not using the full range now, I'm just using part of the range. So the connection strength here is 20%. And also the connection strength to this is, let's see, that is 25%. And there is an offset as well. So if I put it to 0 now, you can see it is about 60% maybe, or 55%. So that is because I'm trying to limit the range, but I haven't experimented so much with this. So you may want to, if you use this patch, you may want to try to experiment a little bit with different settings here, and that will change that crazy random feedback effect that you get when you use the control for feeding back the delay into the opposite delay. So basically what this does now is that it's, at the moment now, this is just maxed out, and that actually makes the delay line time exactly 2 seconds. If I reduce this a little bit now, at some point it will start changing a little bit, and then I increase these LFOs and it will start changing more. You may also try different LFOs. Now at the moment I am using triangle wave, but of course you can use random, you can use sine. It will have a different effect. And this is something I wanted to explore further actually. So I want to also, after I've finished doing this, I am thinking maybe I'll do a patch that is just a few delays. Maybe I'll create my own delays with delay lines because I can control it in different ways, and doing different kinds of feedback between the delays and see if I can create something interesting and crazy that way. I thought that would have been an interesting project, something that's playable, of course, as a sort of crazy experimental music effect. So at the moment, these are changing gradually, and it creates an interesting effect, I think. And then the output of the delays, both delays, is sent into, where is it now? A reverb, which I've got over here. And that's a reverb light, which I think sounds really great, and it doesn't use much CPU, which is exactly what you need if you are having a distortion, a cab sim, which actually uses quite a bit, just that, and 2 delays, and then you also want a reverb on top of that. That's all I've got room for, is a reverb light. And that is got the decay time set to this control here, and it's got the mix set to this knob here. And that is then sent to the audio output, which probably should be down in the corner there. So audio output down here, and output gain actually set to 9 now. And I think that is a gain level that I landed on as a, I was trying out different things, trying to get the balanced sound from the distortion and the clean signal and things like that, and I found I could actually add a bit of gain at the end as well, and that sounded okay. So that may not be ideal, and it does introduce a little bit of noise, but I didn't think that was a problem. I thought that was actually quite an all right sound. So I'm just going to play a little bit for you now, just to see how it works again. So now I've gone through the patch. As you can see, it is quite a simple patch technically, and it's got all the controls here on this page, the main workings there, and the reverb and the audio out, and the delays with the feedback between the delays control, which could be controlled in different ways. Yeah, let's get to it. There we are. It does help to switch it on. Oh, that's one effect I forgot, actually, by the way. You can also make this into a sort of flanger as well. Right, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful or interesting. I will upload this to patch storage. You may have a look at it and adjust it if you want, or play with it the way it is. So it is set up for standard MIDI controllers, channel 1, 1 to, or 0 rather, 0 to 15, and the push buttons on channel 2, easy to change if you need to, and all the controls are on the first page, as well as value modules if you want to use those with the encoder. All of that is a little bit more annoying to do. The fastest way to do it after the latest update is to put it in note mode, because you actually get fewer distinct values that is trying to run through, so it's faster and easier to work with the encoder in note mode than in any other mode at the moment. So if you know that, please like, share, comment, subscribe, join me on Patreon, and I'll see you next time when I make another video. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye for now. Bye bye.